In the last video for the Long Dark Signal Void, I shared the story of Bunker Beta. It provided some answers about the nature of the events narrated in the notes, but came with more questions. As I get closer to finishing this series of videos, I'm going to ask you, the viewer, to please make sure not to spoil anything in the comments. Let's get right into it. If you do not want to be spoiled, leave now. This is your final warning. Bunker Gamma is the focus of this video, which is located in Pleasant Valley. Inside you will find Security Chief's Log 6 and Interview Transcript 14. It is important to note that this Security Chief's log is earlier in time to the ones in Bunker Alpha and Beta, but the interview transcript is still sequential in time. Remember that all three characters are the same through all the Bunker narrated notes. Let me start with Security Chief's Log 6. This is the narration.
The island hasn't been making our lives any easier. Hauling loads from the coast to the inland bases has been slow and costly. And people are starting to notice our operation around the airfield and mine. It's getting harder to stay under the radar. But the character of the locals, both here and far inland, seems in our favor. There aren't any helping hands. Outsiders get ignored and then forgotten. And we play the part.
Now let me share the key takeaways from Security Chief's Log 6. The remote nature of the island hindered progress on the project. The mysterious cargo going through the airfield was for this project. The people of the island were in the project's favor. Being outsiders helped them camouflage what they were doing. Next, I'll share my thoughts on Security Chief's Log 6. Right off the bat, this log is clearly from before the project was in full motion. The workers were bringing supplies from the coast to the far territory, but at a huge cost to time and money. During this time in Great Bear Island's history, mainlanders were viewed differently and are generally despised. Look at how Grey Mother talks to Mackenzie in Wintermute. This no doubt helped to hide most of their trail preparing for the project, but people started to notice. In particular, workers at the airfield were told to ignore mysterious cargo and to not bother the workers handling it. This note was available in December, alluding to the work being done by this research team. There was one very important thing mentioned that caught my ears. The people of the island, their character, are in favor of the project. This could mean one of two things. The first is that it could be a reference to how some islanders steer clear of mainlanders and would allow for the project to go unnoticed. The second is that the islanders are perfect subjects for whatever experiment is being performed. My best guess is probably the latter, and I'll talk about it later in this video. Let me continue with Interview Transcript 14. This is the narration.
Session 14, Project Medical Officer interviewing Patient 7. Return to the first instance. What did you see?
It was at the beach. Just pictures in my head, feelings. One of those beaches where the sand goes way down to the water, no drop off. I remember a gray day and dark water, no wind, no waves. I was alone, looking around a lot. I didn't understand what was happening. What do you think when you're that little? Always wondered why it was that day, that trip, that stuck with me.
Focus on the ending, the final frame.
They lost me. Just a little kid.
And these are the key takeaways from Interview Transcript 14. This is the 14th session with Patient 7. This is the first instance, and in this dream, Patient 7 is recounting a memory from childhood. Next, I'll share my thoughts on Interview Transcript 14. There really isn't a lot to mention here. This session is the latest chronologically, but the instance is the first one the patient had during the research project. It is actually a memory of when the patient was lost as a child at the beach. As it is the first dream the patient had, it is the clearest and least concerning. Instance 2 from Bunker Alpha was somewhat troubling as the patient couldn't remember the ending, and Instance 3 from Bunker Beta was concerning for how dark the dream was. Now I want to discuss two important theories that were brought to my attention by a viewer named Warian. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. The first has to do with the purpose of Rudiger's machine and the dreams. Warian's theory is that the research project taking place on the island is not far off from a real-world experiment known as MK Ultra. This experiment that ran from the 1950s to 1970s aimed to find a way to master mind control using psychedelic drugs and torture. It is clear that something is causing the workers of the research project to have these dreams. The fact that some of these workers are in close proximity to the machine and they are having increasingly disturbing dreams is part of the proof. The rest lies with the fact that seemingly no one on the project knows what is happening except for Rudiger and, minor spoiler for Bunker Omega, the medical officer. The workers are unknowingly being experimented on. To put it in simple terms, the machine is emitting an energy field that is causing the workers to have dreams. The longer the exposure, the deeper the reach into the subconscious mind, and the darker the dream. If the experiment had significant results, I believe the machine would have been used on the entire Far Territory or even the whole island. Great Bear Island, a forgotten relic, a shadow of what it used to be before the collapse, abandoned by the rest of the world, was the perfect place to perform human experimentation. It would explain why the islanders were ideal for the project. Despite all this theory explains what the experiment really is, but not why they are performing it. The other theory by Florian is extremely intriguing and got my mind thinking about science. I know, a very scary topic. To start, take a look at these papers that line the walls of the bunkers. In particular, this one caught my eyes. The circular piece surrounded by wire, with some mechanical energy applied to it, is essentially a generator. Generators produce their own magnetic field. The Earth itself is a giant generator producing its own magnetic field, which flows into outer space to protect us from solar winds and more. When hit by a solar event such as a solar flare, the magnetic field is temporarily weakened, producing auroras at the Earth's poles. Of course, the game's campaign famously begins with a solar flare hitting the Earth, frying the magnetic field and all the electronics on the planet. But what does this all have to do with the research project? Well, if I'm not mistaken, these pages and diagrams are essentially the blueprints and instructions for Rudiger's machine. The machine, which was previously theorized to generate an energy field, is a generator. It produces its own magnetic field. As with all electronics in the game, during an aurora, they light up. This machine during an aurora event is charged up and then later releases its energy into the Far Territory. But only the Far Territory. Have you guessed what I'm talking about yet? It's the one key difference between the two halves of the game world. It's the glimmer fog. Florian's second theory threw me on a seemingly unrelated tangent only for it to make sense. The machine is the source of the glimmer fog and would explain perfectly why insomnia is exclusive to it. It's even possible that the glimmer fog itself is the magnetic field surrounding it. The machine is a sleep disruptor, drawing dreams from deep inside the person's mind, driving them crazy, all in the hopes of what? Maybe Bunker Omega will give us the answer. In conclusion, I have done a little too much braining for one day. While Bunker Gamma didn't have any major things to discuss, it helped connect the dots a little bit more. It is confirmed that the workers of this project are responsible for the mysterious cargo on the airfield. If I'm correct, the state of despair and disconnection from the rest of the world made Great Bear Island a prime candidate for this experiment. Of course, the God tier theories by Florian, assisted by my own theories, really makes you think how much we don't know about the secrets of Great Bear Island. Thank you for that, by the way. If you are interested in knowing the history of the island, please check out my storytelling series for the Long Dark. For now, please make sure to do all the things listed on screen, and I'll see you next time.